Hey everyone. In this video, I want to talk about the three kinds of claims that you could be using in your essay. Again, we've been working on these all semester, but I want us to make sure that we have a formal understanding of what they are, how they work, and how you can make them work for you. So by the end of this video, your goal will be to define the three kinds of claims and apply these to your own writing in both the form of a thesis and topic sentence. And also as you read, you're going to be able to better understand, what kind of arguments people are making and what kind of, evidence and analysis they might need. And the reason we want to do this is because honestly, any kind of argument you make, even if it's not in a college class, is going to come back to basically kind of one of these three things. They're kind of just like the base units. And you can mix and match them, but here they are. We have a claim of fact, claim of value, claim of policy, or what we might call a combination claim, where we mix these up into different combinations. Because you can basically mix them in any combination of them that you can possibly think of. How fun. Okay, so let's look at some. What is a claim of fact? A claim of fact is the one that you are probably the most familiar with, the one that you're probably maybe even the most comfortable with, because it's what you think of for research papers. But this is arguing that something either is true or is not true. Something is a fact or something is not a fact. This doesn't necessarily mean that it is a fact in the sense of 2 + 2 is a fact, but it's something that you're going to argue or prove is true with evidence. And so what we want to think about here is there's not necessarily a direct way of accessing that it's true. That's why we need you to prove it's true. Instead, you're going to, get us there with different kinds of inferences, putting different things together to show that something is happening. And so we might also call this, or think about this as kind of like a fact-based opinion. Because again, you're usually going to take a side of something and you're going to prove it. So let's look at it. Here's some examples. Average global temperatures have risen to unprecedented levels within the past decade due to human-generated greenhouse gases. Some people might argue that that's not true. Some people might argue that that is true, but that's basically why it's a claim of fact. You are arguing that this is a fact or that this is not a fact, and it's not evidently true. We don't all immediately believe this, even though a lot of the evidence suggests that it's true. The Earth is round. This doesn't work because, again, we know that this is true. We've seen pictures of space. We have mathematical proof. We have all sorts of evidence that shows us that the Earth is round. So this is not a claim of fact. This just is a fact. See the difference? Someone might disagree with it. This one can't. People might disagree with it, but you're kind of wrong. Maybe even this one too. But again, the unprecedented levels is maybe what we're talking about. Okay, this one too. Left-handed people face discrimination in their daily lives because dangerous machinery is designed for right-handed people. Again, people might disagree with that. I would spend the rest of my essay proving that this is true, showing that, left-handed people are more likely to die younger because they get in accidents because, again, we design stuff, especially dangerous stuff, for people who are right-handed, and that kind of matters. Or this one too. Reading scores are falling in the United States. Okay, cool. I would want to prove that that's true. And then I would also need to prove that this is true because students don't understand punctuation and how to read it. So again, look at this. This is three different claims of fact. One, that reading scores are falling. That's maybe the easiest to prove. That students don't understand punctuation, harder to prove. And they don't know how to read it, even harder to prove. So you can even see how this one sort of builds on itself. We also get into claims of value. These are arguing that something does or does not have some kind of value. Something is or is not valuable in some sort of way. It could be good, it could be bad, it could be both, it could be neither. It could be something that's pretty, it could be ugly, it's really basic, it's really extravagant, whatever you want. It could be something that's authentic, it could be phony. Basically, what you want to do is come up with some sort of clear criteria that you can articulate, that's fair, that's sort of measurable, and you want to make sure that you're showing us why you think that is the case. So if you're going to say that something is authentic, for example, you would need to have a set of criteria. It needs to meet X, Y, and Z for me to call it authentic. And if it doesn't do those, I don't know, maybe not the best way of going about it. And the reason we do that is because these are very subjective kinds of arguments, because they're telling us how you feel. And so if they're going to be telling us that, we need to have a clear way of being if I can sort of try to get in the same headspace as blank, could I see that same sort of, claim unfolding? So let's look at some examples. Louise Erdrich's Love Medicine, published in 1984, is the most important, there it is, that's where it is, American novel because it highlights how stories create our sense of community. And look, I talked about composition once earlier, like this one would really be a claim of fact. It's not a claim of value. My claim of value is it's the most important. How am I supposed to show that? What's my criteria for most important? It's something with these facts. I could probably develop it a little bit better. Two-year colleges are the most cost-effective and bring better returns on investment than four-year. Okay, where's my claim of value? It's not in the first half. This is a claim of fact, most cost-effective. I can prove that that's true, but that's my criteria for talking about how they bring a better return on investment. So I'm going to have to think about, like, how do I mean better? What exactly am I going to need to show is true to the reader? Here's one. Birds, not reptiles, are the direct descendants of dinosaurs. Well, that's not a claim of value at all. I'm not trying to show that something is good, something's bad, something blah, 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 that birds are better than dinosaurs. I'm just trying to say that they're related. That's just a claim of fact, and we don't want to do that. We'd want to try to think about how we could bring, a value into it. Why are birds more valuable than dinosaurs? Which is not a real question to ask. Or like this, teaching grammar consistently throughout K through 12 is the best way to prepare students to read academic articles. Again, I need to come up with criteria for explaining best, better, stuff like that, important. None of these are great, but it's just trying to show you an easy way of doing this. Think of better criteria that you can, very clearly articulate to your reader. And then the last one is the easiest one to understand. Claim of policy. It tells you exactly what it does. It is trying to tell you what you should do, what a policy is. A policy is a rule, what you should do. It identifies a problem, and it argues that you should do a solution. And so basically, this often combines almost always with claims of facts and claims of values, as we will see here in a second. Almost all claims of policies, or at least good ones, are going to be combination claims. These are easy to, write. And these are also very easy to spot because they will include one of these words: should, must, ought, need to. If it's not including one of those words, it's probably not a claim of policy. So here, I'll show you. It'll be easy. The United States should ban, there it is, the sale of fossil fuels. Why? Because claim of fact. They contribute dangerous greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Cool. High school English classes must make intensive grammar education mandatory for freshmen. That's just a simple claim of policy, no claim of fact, claim of value. You can even see how maybe this one feels weaker than that one without that added extra claim. Like this one. All students should fill out the census. And again, I have a rationale, so we get that sweet government money and representation in Congress. Again, claim of fact. Or finally, AI usage is increasing among students. Hey, that's not a claim of value or policy. There's no should, must, ought, need to in it. So we can just revise that. We can take this claim of fact and we can, what should ECC do about it? ECC should adopt a coherent plan of action because AI usage is increasing among students. See, claim of policy is so easy. So here's some 4 takeaways about those claims. The kinds of claims will show up in argumentative writing of all sorts, from academic to popular, from, talking to your friend about what you should or should not do for the weekend. These show up all of the time in argumentative forms of writing and just talking. The claims can be solo. You can have just a claim of fact. You can have just a claim of value. You can have just a claim of policy, or they can be combined. You can have a claim of policy with a claim of fact, claim of policy with a claim of value. You can have a claim of value with a claim of fact. You can have a claim of fact with a claim of value. Whatever you want. The possibilities are endless. I think they're not. You can mathematically do them. There's not that many. And then, these claims need to be argumentative. They need to be something that someone's not just going to be like, yeah, no, we all agree. Everyone agrees. No one disagrees. And they need to be arguable. They need to be something that you can prove. So if you say that something is the most important, that's kind of weak. You need to be able to show me that something is important. Important's a terrible word. Come up with something better. And then finally, claims will often hint at the kids, the kinds of evidence that you will need to support them. Again, they will tell you, if you look at the thesis or the topic sentence, they will tell you. If I say that reading scores are falling, hey, I better have evidence that shows that reading scores are falling, right? Okay, so if you have any questions about this, please don't hesitate to reach out. I am more than happy to help you with more of these. If you need help writing any of them, email me at kbolt@elgin.edu. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video. Have a good one.